So the 2023 elections have come and gone. Well, we still have some, how do you call it now, pockets of elections in the state around November.
Yeah, off-season.
Off-season elections.
Yeah.
But the general elections have come and gone with mixed reactions. Some say, oh, horrible. Some say good. INEK, through its spokesperson, Mr. Festus Okoye, has said that there are more positives than negatives, and all of this will still be looked at to improve on the election process. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is, can the electorate deliver their votes and see those votes get to the destination that they want them to get to? To help us understand and look at the 2023 elections vis-a-vis the reports that have come in, the latest being that from the European Union is Mr. James Ugochukwu, Executive Director, African Center for Entrepreneurship Development and Information Development, immediate past co-convener, Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room, election analyst and good governance advocate. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Ugochukwu.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Also here is Dr. Yabagi Sani, who's the National Chairman of Inter-Party Advisory Council. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
So let's start with you. Seeing that you have all the parties working with you here, and you'll probably be speaking for all the political parties. So let's just ask you, in your own observation, what would you say the 2023 elections are like?
Well, like you rightly said, from the political party's point of view, we see 2023 elections as the cup that is half full. Others like to see it as half empty. So we believe there is a chance. And like you know, democracy is a journey. It's not a destination. So where we are today, all we can do is to assemble all those things that happened. Where did we get it wrong? Where did we get it right? What do we need to do in order to improve on the system? And I think, like even the court cases, they are also part of the process. How to strengthen the process. Nations are not built overnight. And election is about building a nation, forming a government. And therefore, if you also weigh it against the dichotomies that we have in this country, which are real, you ignore it at your peril. Issues of religion, issues of ethnicity, issues of regional sentiments and things like that. These are real elements in our politics that perhaps, even if they have it in other countries, they do not play such predominant role as we have it in Nigeria. And these things, the cumulative effect of it is what you saw play out, especially in the 2023 elections, even from the primaries. Some of us that conducted such primaries, we know what happened. It's about who is this person. It's not so much what can he deliver. And that's the reality of Nigeria, whether you want to believe it or not. Because you have to satisfy those, the ones you call primordial sentiments, and which we have come to use as a yardstick to measure the person. Up to the when government forms. Even like today, President Ashwaju, Bola Tinubu is trying to put his government together. People are waiting to see how much has he done in terms of assuaging the fears of other ethnic groups. Because other ethnic groups are afraid that a Yoruba man has come to the scene now. Is he going to be a Yoruba government, or is it going to be a Nigerian government? You know what happened in the last administration. It was all about a particular ethnic group. That was driving the whole process. By and large. And today, what is emerging from even Aswaju's administration seems to show that kind of sentiments. Dancing to the issue of ethnicity. So people are now waiting. How does he balance it? In the cabinet formation. Cabinet formation, of course, he has little or no option, but to satisfy the constitutional requirements that every state you must have at least one minister, isn't it? But then there are other key appointments that will come. And if these appointments do not reflect, the aspiration of Nigerians, what is the aspiration of Nigerians? To now be able to look at things from their real and merit, aspect of it so that we can get it right, quickly.
Dr. Sani, you seem to have moved away from the election itself. You're already moving very quickly.
I've told you about the election. The EU report, you mentioned the EU report.
Indeed.
There are other reports we have here.
Yeah.
I said, people looking at it, will see it as cup half, empty. Well, we are saying it's cup half full because what is happening in Nigeria is not anything that is extraordinarily different from what you see even in the United States of America, where Trump is still claiming that the mandate was stolen from him. We've seen what is happening also in some other African countries. Sierra Leone just had an election. It wasn't.
Is it a question of half? Because some people are saying that if it were half, maybe it might be a little more easy to decide. Some people think that it's about cup 3/4 full and cup 1/4 empty. Or cup, filled up 1/4, as the case might be. In other words, INEK promised a full cup, or perhaps deliver just a quarter of the cup that was. And INEK is saying, no, there were more positives in this election than negatives. Do you agree with INEK?
To an extent, I agree with INEK. And I blame Nigerians themselves. Ourselves. We should blame ourselves. Here you are. You now put somebody in charge of such a sensitive, assignment like conducting elections for this country, and you allow one person to appoint everybody that will supervise that election. And this person is a key player. He's also a very strong player in the game. You allow Mr. President to appoint the INEK. Not only does he appoint INEK, also the national commissioners, and even the man that is supervising it at the state level, and down the line like that. And you expect INEK to play magic. What kind of magic can they? These people are also interested in their own welfare too. It's a human nature tendency. So what I'm talking about is that we have to look at the fundamentals. And the fundamentals here, which we know, that's why I say we blame ourselves as Nigerians. West report has talked about these things. Every other report that, even the EU and all, they also mention things in that respect, that no transparency, the fundamentals were not properly in place. So the point I'm making is that Nigerians should, and especially the National Assembly, Mope, you are aware what happened before we even got what they call, which now has turned out to be a kind of swindle. When the National Assembly said they gave us automatic transfer,
transmission of results.
Transmission of results from the polling unit. You know how much Nigerians had to fight. Before they had to go and bring somebody from who has no relevance to what we're talking about, that to come and prove what is not right, that is right. I'm talking about the capabilities of the network. We know that in the farthest bush that you can talk about, you can use FRIAR, you can use other RTUs that are enabled by way of satellite. You can transmit data, wherever you are in this world today.
But you maintain.
So the point I'm making is
you maintain in spite of that. Yeah, you maintain in spite of that you agree with INEK that there are more positive than negatives. We'll come to, what makes you see more positives in a moment. But let me take the point of Mr. Ogochukwu. It's been a very interesting season for you. It's now the season of reports. We've seen that done by the Situation Room, which didn't come without its own fair share of controversy. As you saw in that particular report, and you see INEK, consistently saying, look, there were more positives in these elections than there were negatives. From your own assessment, where you sit, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, to answer your question succinctly, we in the civil society, we look at it from a dispassionate angle. Prior to the election in December 2021, we launched a threshold, towards the 2023 election. And the idea behind the threshold is to look at all the stakeholders in this election. And it's like a test for every stakeholders. And our report now is the scorecard for it. You look at it now, we've started this thing from 2015. This is 2015 report, this is 2019 report, and this is 2023 report. Now, the challenge we have here is that we have a system that don't really take the civil society very seriously when we make a recommendation. And of course, maybe it's this perception that the civil society people don't know what they are doing. But for information, people in the civil society are professionals in different fields before they venture into this call to reform the society. Now, when we release our report, it's based on empirical evidence, because the situation room will have different organizations that do serious data analysis. So everything we are saying is evidence-based. So whether whatever INEK view is, as far as this election is concerned, our report, we stand by it that this is what we were able to gather as a situation, and which is INEK failed the credibility threshold we gave them in various aspects. And of course, the whole details is contained in the report there. And not only INEK, every other stakeholders. National Assembly, for instance, now. I remember during the appointment of the President Electoral Commissioners, who cried out loud to high heaven that, look, some of these your electoral commissioners who want to approve or appoint, they have political leanings. Some of them are biased. Some of them are card-carrying members of political parties, but they still went ahead to, appoint those people to those positions. On the part of INEK, from 2015 to 2019 to even from 2011 elections, already be crying about the result collation process as the weakest link of the electoral process, making serious recommendations, which were never taken into cognizance or taken seriously. Then, when they brought the issue of beavers and IREV, okay, this is a game changer. That, okay, this time around, we are departing from the norms to something new. So we had high hope about it. Of course, most Nigeria, can assure you, came out to vote because they believe that this particular technology is going to be a game changer. They are going to vote, and they believe that their votes are going to be, the result is going to be the reflection of what they voted. But, on the election day, on the presidential election, presidential and national assembly election day, we had this jolting surprise that people cannot upload results in the IRF portal. And then when you see the results being uploaded, you see some of them mutilated, some very blurry. And you'll be asking your question if the INEK ad hoc staff and the other officials undergo any training at all for them to be coming up with such kind of incompetent output. So for us, we stand by our statement that INEK failed in some aspects. Of course, they did well in some aspects. In terms of accreditation of voters and all that, they did very well. That's the Beavers machine. It worked very well. And of course, we'll be monitoring the Beavers machine from the introduction, from when they started in off-cycle election in Ekiti, Ondo, Osun State, and Anambra. We checked all those things. During those times, the turnaround time of the Beavers machine is about 5 minutes or so. But in the general election, it took less than 1 minute to accredit voters and get them voted.
I'm going to have to ask you to hold your thoughts. We will come back and discuss more on the merits and demerits of the 2023 elections. In just a moment, please stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching Sunrise Daily, coming to you here from our Abuja studios and also from our studios in Lagos. Right here in our studios in Abuja, we have two guests, Dr. Yabagi Sani, who is the National Chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC, and also Mr. James Ugochukwu, Executive Director, African Center for Entrepreneurship Development and Information Development, a mouthful. Well, we're talking about the 2023 elections, the reports that have come out so far. INEK's response to it, talking about how they believe that there were more positives than negatives from the elections. You were talking about some of the positives. You talked about beavers and how the turnaround time was far shorter than what we had seen in off-cycle seasons. But we also know that there were issues such as late deployment of materials in many parts of the country. How did negatives like this contribute to hampering the positives that we could have reaped from, say, the fast turnaround time of the beavers?
Well, it's a case of having a climax and anti-climax. For instance, now the turnaround time of the beavers was fast, but INEK brought an anti-climax by late deployment of men and materials. And the question we keep asking is, what is it that is always holding INEC on election day from deploying materials to locations on a day that the whole place will be shut down? There's no vehicular movement, there's no human movement, the whole road is free, but yet you cannot still move items from one point to the other. The case in point is in Abuja, for instance. The very we have one of the best road networks in the country, but right here, in some places in IPAC here, INEC couldn't start election till midnight of the election day. So the question we're asking is, how can people maximize the turnaround time of beavers when they are not even available? The INEC are not available there to conduct the election. It's what a lot of people turned out to vote, and they went home, went back home out of frustration. So it becomes an anticlimax in his own stead. Then the other point is, during the transmission, we had challenges of not being able to transmit presidential results. We were able to transmit that of National Assembly result. The question we're asking is, why did we have that kind of discrepancies or technical glitches on election day, despite all the assurances that the beavers and the RF machine is a game changer? Of course, we've confirmed that it's a game changer in the off-cycle election I've mentioned, because during the Osun, Ekiti, and other off-cycle election, before 12 midnight, about 90 or 98% of the results are already available on the RF portal. So the question is, what went wrong this time around?
I'm a little curious also about the process. You mentioned the fact that late deployment of materials continues to be an issue for INEC, and something really needs to be done about that. But are we also forgetting the context? And this is not making any excuses for INEC, but we do recall that in that period, Naira was scarce, petrol was also a scarce commodity in that season. Do you think, with the analysis that has been done so far, did any of these external challenges come to feature in the post-election reports we're seeing?
Well, if I can recall, the INEC officials or chairman, they had a meeting with the central bank governor during that time frame. And the central bank governor gave them all the assurances that every support they need will be given to them. That is checked. Then, when it comes to the fuel scarcity, yes, we are going to have an election on a particular day. This is national election. This is Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation. The president is the Minister of Petroleum. I don't think INEC should have any issue having fuel.
No, I'm just saying that did any of this in the post-election analysis, did we find, for instance, it's one thing for them to, INEC promised that they were going to upload results on IREF. They did not upload the result, at least not at that time, on election day. I'm saying that, did we find that maybe in the process, maybe some of these promises that were made were not quite fulfilled in all sectors? Did that constitute any challenge in the analysis that has been done so far?
Of course, ordinarily it will constitute a challenge because, for instance, now, that of cash now, at least INEC has not been able to tell us that they were not able to pay their vendors. We've not had that report, or their ad hoc staff, or all those ones. But the question we're asking yourself is, okay, if you didn't have any problem paying them, why is it that they couldn't deploy these materials to where they're supposed to be at the right time?
So you suspect that they could have had those kinds of challenges?
So what you are saying now is that we cannot place where the challenge is coming from, apart from logistic lapses. Because one thing is to hire somebody to do something. The other challenge is for you to oversight how the person do the whole thing. So if you give somebody money and you don't oversight how the person do something, it will mess up the process for you.
At the end of the day, if you look at some of the recommendations made by the EU, for instance, where they talked about ambiguity in the laws and then setting up a publicly accountable system. You talked about the way INEC personnel are recruited, and one of the phrases you used was about the welfare system. It's about a welfare thing. So if the two of you can weigh in on this, ambiguity in the law, we do remember a senior advocate of Nigeria, Lisa Abakoba, talked about the ambiguity in the law in terms of the 25% for the FCT. That's one area. There are some other areas he talked about. What should we be looking at going forward? 2023 is out. we have the pocket elections coming up in November. Well, what should we be looking at as we go forward? The National Assembly is coming in. What should they begin to look at immediately to see that our electoral process gets better? The two of you can weigh in on this, even as it includes the recruitment process.
Yeah, well, I think accountability is what we should look out for. Accountability, because even from what we have said about issue of money, fuels, these were man-made problems, deliberately, and the person who did it did not hide it. They were even flaunting it on the television that they are doing this in order to checkmate, the so-called politicians and what have you. But look at the kind of hardship it's introduced. Look at the kind of how it sabotaged even the election itself. So accountability. And if people can get away with this kind of things in a system that we are aspiring, we are hoping that it's going to be, we are going to be leaders, which we are supposed to be.
That part of sabotaging the elections, some people will argue with you because INEK did not complain that sabotaged.
I'm not talking about INEK. I'm talking about those who even appoint, those who put INEK in place. I'm talking about the presidency itself. The presidency should be called to account. Because this Naira, no, what was it that you want to change the Naira for? What is it? Nothing. No economic sense in what they did. There is no economic sense in making fuel not to be available, all over the place to facilitate the elections. We, the political parties, were not happy. We're angry. And somebody should be called to account. There should be accountability. Central bank governor, NNPC, GMD or GSC or whatever they call them should be called to account. Why? Why did you allow this thing to happen at the time that Nigeria is being, put together? Because that's putting together the whole nation. That's what elections are about. So I believe that accountability is one thing that we must, ensure that we look out for in the build-up to other elections.
Okay, Mr.
And also in INEK too. Why didn't INEK follow their own guidelines? If you put a guideline in place and you keep telling people that these guidelines are what you are going to use, and you are actually using them, because I remember we political parties suffered, at the time we were trying to upload, our candidates. INEK stuck to their rules, as that this is not something negotiable at all. So what happened when it matters? So these, but there should be accountability.
Okay. So go to quickly before our colleagues in Lagos will have some questions.
The first thing that needs to be done is for independent audit of the election to be carried out by the National Assembly. Independent in the sense that you can't be asking INEK to audit themselves. You can't go through an exam and score yourself and grade yourself. So an independent audit needs to be carried out on how the election went. Then number two, we need to go back to Uwe's report in terms of picking the leadership of INEK. Just as a doctor said, we cannot be having a football match and one person will be picking the referee. That should stop. And that is what the next point I'm going to make is legislation. Need to change all that. And in terms of picking INEK President Electoral Commission, it shouldn't be something that we do at random. At times we pick somebody that has no knowledge of electoral process and you put the person there. I think it shouldn't be a political appointment. We have state directors in different INEK INEK state offices. So those ones should be, upgraded to a resident electoral commission towards election. It should be an open process where these people will be accountable to the people, not to the government. Because if you pick somebody as INEK as a president, don't expect the person not to be loyal to the president. It's as simple as that. So that should be changed. And that was what the Waste report recommended, but it was thrown away by the assembly of that particular period. Then the next thing is for punitive measure to be taken against people that are found wanting. Because of all the things that happened during the election, if nobody is arrested and nobody is punished for it, people will do worse than that in the next election, and we shouldn't expect anything to change.
All right, let's go to Lagos where our colleagues Kade and Buki have some questions. Guys.
Right. Let me start with Mr. Yabagi Sani. And I mean, that point has been made about the true independence of INEK. Some will say that wouldn't you be expecting too much from a commission that Yes, the name is independent, but all of the appointment has been said. Even you've heard cases where politicians influence the recruitment of ad hoc staff, and you wonder, what do you expect from the ad hoc staff anyway? They'll just naturally do the bidding. So it's like going against the nature of the commission itself, and particularly in terms of appointment. So if recommendations will be made, by the way, I don't know how much of these recommendations will kick in before the off-cycle elections we have later this year, but there's no harm in trying, and I imagine that the 10th Assembly can move swiftly in that regard. So who should then be responsible for the appointments?
Well, I believe that the appointments, I think the suggestion by West Report is that NJC, Nigerian Council should handle it, and that it should be advertised, and that it should be a transparent process, so that people can see exactly the person that has been appointed. Of course, after the process, National Assembly can now come in and then ratify for other reasons of giving it the legal teeth that it's supposed to have. Otherwise, we will continue to be in this vicious cycle, and we'll be punishing the wrong people because, like we have said, time and again, that it is not really the fault of those who you today have in INEK. It is the system itself, the system we put in place. That is what's responsible for all these things we are talking about. So when people talk about punishing somebody, somebody apologizing, no, it's us, Nigerians. Let's change the system. Let's change the system itself of appointing people, and then things will begin to now, be in the proper direction. If we don't do that, there's no way anything will change. If you put somebody, you can take even an angel there. If the system is not proper, there's no way the person can operate and then give you the results that you want. So we need to go back to the drawing board and really change the system of putting the personnel that we put in INEK to supervise the conduct of the elections.
Indeed.
So that is number one that we must do. National Assembly, I'm sure, has their job cut out for them, to ensure that happens.
Indeed, we hope that will not be a gigantic hurdle to cross in terms of recommending appointments for officials of the Commission. Let's take another look at some of the grey areas identified by the European Union, one of which, apart from identifying ambiguity in appointments, is also ensuring real-time publication and access to election results. And even though the Electoral Act as amended has, allowed electronic transmission of results, but we still see that element within the electoral process where at the Commission's headquarters and at the State Electoral Commission's headquarters for INEK, officials are waiting collation officers, the arrival of results from collation officers. How important or significant is that to the complaints about the results transmitted to IREV portal, particularly where opposition parties are identifying variation in results, comparing notes with what they have and what is found on INEK portal? How can we correct this, even though the Electoral Act has stipulated electronic transmission of results? That's for you, Mr. Ugochukwu. Okay.
In the build-up to the 2023 election, we remember that the Electoral Act underwent a lot of tinkering, which produced the 2022 Electoral Act. And part of the major issue that was contended strongly then at the National Assembly was the electronic transmission of results. Of course, it was test-run after the passage, and we saw that this is a game changer. Now, the idea behind having that electronic transmission of results is to ensure that people can now see that the result of election reflected what they voted. Now, the challenges we had in the 2023 general election is that maybe INEK did not train the ad hoc staff very well, which resulted in them mutilating the part of the election result or even uploading blurry pictures to the RF portal. And you remember that in the Electoral Act, that this case that was made, I've forgotten that particular clause, that in case where there's a contention or so, that the result in the RF portal would take preeminent. But with what we are seeing now, I wonder how that is going to play out. So what INEK should be looking at now is training the ad hoc staff to ensure that after the election, the result uploaded and the result they have as hard copy from ECHA are one and the same. And of course, any ad hoc staff that is found uploading mutilated report will be, punished seriously, made to face the law to the point of even fines or imprisonment. If that is not done, we'll keep on having these particular issues that we're having. So the problem is not the technology. The problem is not the RF portal. The problem is the people manning it. And if they are not well trained, I think INEK should step up their activities to ensure that these guys are well trained before deploying them to the field.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
There's something to take note of. It's not so much
in 10 seconds.
Yeah, in 10 seconds. It is the fact that the collation itself is still left manual. That it's done manually. And if it is done manually, then it can be influenced.
So it should be automated?
Yeah, automated, exactly.
Thank you so much. Mr. James Ugochukwu is Executive Director, Africa Center for Entrepreneurship Development and Information Development. Immediate PASCO convener.
Center for Entrepreneurship and Information Development.
Okay, for Entrepreneurship and Information Development. Immediate PASCO convener, Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room, and Election Analyst and Good Governance Advocate, and Dr. Yabagi Sani, National Chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council. Thank you both for coming in this morning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.